BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello and welcome to the Farming Today podcast with me, Charlotte Smith. In this episode, modern ag studies. It's not just machinery and livestock.
The type of technologies that have been used and deployed within the automotive industry, the defence industry, the aerospace industry are now being deployed in agriculture. The role of data, the role of AI and the role of automation has become a significant part of it.
First though, the meat wholesalers body in Scotland says the Scottish Government isn't doing enough to combat meat imports, which are putting the sector under pressure. As we reported last week, cattle numbers in Scotland have been declining for some time, but Rural Affairs Secretary Mari Goujon told us the government is supportive of farmers and has rejected advice from the Climate Change Committee to cut livestock numbers to help meet emissions targets.
We have no policy to reduce livestock in Scotland, also making clear our commitment to support for the sector. So the over £600 million we have available for direct support, our voluntary coupled support schemes, our less favoured area support scheme as well. When you look at the suckler beef scheme, we're continuing that until at least 2028, at which point it will form part of its future framework.
Alan Brown, the president of the Scottish Association of Meat Wholesalers, told me they've heard it all before.
The words sound good, the rhetoric sounds good, the deliverance is not. So we're dealing with a product that takes a 3-year cycle to get it from birth to process, and where we've actually declined in the last 3 years. So the policy that was actually there to be generating this livestock on the floor hasn't worked. So the herd has declined. So when these guys stand up and say to you they're not going to decline the herd, but they're not actually coming around with the evidence or the information to show us how they're going to reduce the decline and actually increase it back to what the number was 1 to 2 to 3 years ago.
What they would say was, hang on, we're giving you lots of support. There is a suckler scheme, it doesn't exist in other parts of the UK. They are in the new iteration of farm support. 70% of the money will go in direct payments to farmers. If you compare that with what's happening in England, where you only get paid for the public goods that you provide. So the government surely here could argue that actually farmers are getting support.
Look, I think if you actually quote, the figure that was quoted this morning is 600 million, of which circa 40 million goes towards the beef suckler scheme. That could be 400 million, that could be 40 million, it could be whatever it's going to be, right? The truth of the matter is, it isn't working because the herd is declining. A redirection of the money to get cattle on the floor would be more realistic.
So how would that work? What would actually give farmers the confidence to expand the herd?
What's going to give farmers, processors, livestock people, agriculture in Scotland the confidence probably isn't going to cost any money. What they want to hear is the government to stand up and make them aware that they support the increase in the herd back to what it was 1 to 2 years ago. But the government are not prepared to do that at the moment because they're trying to tick a box of net zero.
Well, hang on. They have accepted targets that they now have to reach, but they have said that there will be no reduction in livestock as part of those targets. So that is backing Scottish farming, isn't it?
Well, no, because the herd is declining anyway, so they can back it all the way. But what are they going to do to arrest it, and what are they going to do to support it to increase to where it needs to be?
Alan Brown there from the Scottish Association of Meat Wholesalers. Well, as you just heard, the Scottish Government is still committed to achieving net zero while retaining those livestock numbers. And we've reported many times on schemes going on around the country to cut methane emissions. For the last 3 years, the meat processor ABP has been working with 350 of their beef and lamb suppliers to look at improvements producers can make to reduce emissions and improve business efficiency. The preliminary results of their project, PRISM 2030, were revealed on a farm in Fife, and Nancy Nicholson was there to find out more.
Well, I'm walking along a long row of cattle, poking their heads through rails and grazing very contentedly on Billy Cuthbertson's farm. They've been just a tiny part of ABP's nationwide trial, led by Professor Jude Capper. So, how was the trial conducted, Jude, and what are your findings?
The consulting firm Andersons went out, did the carbon footprints, brought all the data back to us. We got an AgriCalc report calculating the carbon, and then we were able to dig deeper into the data behind those reports to look at key performance indicators that would affect the footprint. The results have been really variable. The main messages, I would say, are that we've got huge variation across the UK, both in terms of beef and sheep farms. Management is absolutely key. We've seen differences between sectors, but we can see two farms that are very different, extensive versus intensive, for example, with the same footprint. So it is all about management doing absolutely everything best you can on every single farm to improve the footprint, which in turn should improve profitability as well. So it's a win-win.
So give me an idea of the sort of measures that you've been encouraging farmers to take.
So on the beef side, for example, we've been encouraging better pasture and grazing management, looking at age at slaughter, improving daily live weight gains, improving the percentage of cows that have a calf every single year, and using byproduct feeds as well.
And have they been following your advice?
It's been a real mixture. Of course, every farm has different opportunities, different challenges, but a great number of farmers have taken things on board and started to change, which has been brilliant.
Billy, the animals we're looking at here in the shed, they're almost ready for slaughter, aren't they?
Yes, they'll be going in the next month probably. We'll have a mix between limousines and British Blues and some Charlies.
You've been part of the trial for 2 years. How are these animals being reared and treated differently from 2 years ago?
It's all about grass in this farm anyway. That's our main input. So we're aiming to increase our quality of grass that are grazing. That in turn increases the quality of the silage for the winter ration.
So this is the silage we're looking at here. It's been produced more, efficiently, more sustainably?
Better quality, higher proteins, higher sugars. Working with younger grasses, trying to get younger, fresher grasses to get better quality.
So progress is being made here on Billy's farm, Jude, but how much can you ever really reduce beef emissions? By their very nature, beef production is never going to have that.
When we look at the carbon footprints on beef, we had a massive range, and our challenge now is to identify the key performance indicators that affect the carbon footprint and then look at individual farms. What is Billy doing, for example, to be a really good farmer, and then pass that on across the industry so that everybody can improve.
And will you, as a business, then demand that farmers take these measures?
I think everybody will end up having to, honestly. There's such a drive from government, from the retailer, from the consumer, that I think it's inevitable that everybody's going to have to do everything they can to improve and to be more sustainable.
That report from Nancy Nicholson. Thousands of agriculture students will graduate this summer, from those studying farming to those mixing that with business or food science or any number of other things. So, where will they all end up? Well, this week we'll be looking at their prospects and at what we now need from ag students. Professor Ken Sloan is Vice-Chancellor of Harper Adams University in Shropshire. It has just over 5,000 students, 494 hectares of farmland, and says that 97% of its graduates get a job, and it's no longer just straight agriculture they're teaching.
They also study everything from veterinary science, vet medicine, vet nursing. They do vet physio. We also do business, agribusiness, engineering, agricultural engineering, everything from entomology to environmental science to zoology. So everything that's connected to the natural system and the choices we make with it and what we produce, we will be teaching a course in that area.
And has what employers want from what you're teaching changed over the past decade or so?
There are a couple of things that I think have really come to the fore. Firstly, the UK as a centre of global trade, it's really important we make sure our graduates understand the role of UK farming and the UK resources system in the context of the global trade, because most of them are producing things which will go not just across the UK but elsewhere. The other aspect of it is around new and modern ways of doing things. So the role of data, the role of AI, and the role of automation has become a significant part of it. So if you're an engineer, you need to learn how to do that. But if you are an economist or you're looking at it from a business perspective, you need to be able to understand how to regulate it, how to price it, so it can actually be deployed in the economy.
Does that mean that it is more accessible to students who don't come from a farming background?
It is more accessible, but we have to take active steps to make sure that that is the case. So we know that we are seeing a more diverse cohort of students coming to Harper, an increasing number of students that are coming from urban backgrounds as well as rural backgrounds, an increasing number of students that are coming without a direct experience of farming and agriculture. But we've also done something in the last year to really focus on that. So Harper's had its location in Edgemond for 124 years, but this year we've opened a new urban hub in central Telford, and we're offering different courses there. We're offering robotics, automation, mechatronics, data science and AI. And we've located it right next door to a railway station so that it makes it easier for people from a range of different backgrounds, particularly around Telford and Shropshire, but elsewhere in the country, to be able to come and access it.
When all these students from all these different institutions graduate, what sort of jobs are they getting?
Depends what they've done. In some cases, they're obviously going into either be part of a farming team or to be a farm manager or a farm developer. We've got a large group of students, as have other universities, that go off into land and property management. So they're going on into surveying and they're going into construction and all of the things around that. And then obviously we've got a significant number of people that are going into veterinary science.
We spend a lot of time on this programme talking about all the things that are wrong or are not working or people are cross about in agriculture. Does that, you think, starting to seep in when people are thinking, well, what do I want to do?
We know through the eyes of our graduates that go out, and I'm sure it's the case for the other universities that offer similar degrees, that actually what is happening is there's a hugely vibrant modern resurgence of interest in agriculture. The type of technologies that have been used and deployed within the automotive industry, the defence industry, the aerospace industry are now being deployed in agriculture. So it is a very bright and positive prospect for young people.
Professor Ken Sloan from Harper Adams University. Now, don't forget to get your nominations in for this year's BBC Food and Farming Awards. Here at Farming Today, we've partnered with the Archers for the Farming for the Future Award. To put someone forward, and feel very free to nominate yourself, go to bbc.co.uk/food awards, where you'll also find the terms and privacy notice. Nominations close at midday on the 30th of June. That's it from us. I'm Charlotte Smith. The producer is Sally Challoner, and Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.